Rebuild in the dark, recover in the gray. There's a lot of different ways in which you can deal with this situation right now. But as you can tell, that we've paced through the eradication module, and of course, all of these things take quite a bit of time to transpire. 60 to 65 minutes may not be enough time to go through all of the nitty-gritty details. I noticed that there are quite a few questions online saying, why didn't we cover this topic or that? It is a function of time and how much availability we do have. However, I will tell you that I invite all of you, when you get the post-event survey, to share your feedback with the siberX team. This feedback comes up, rolls up to all of the advisors that are seated in front of you, and as we can't promise to make major changes into Vancouver and Toronto, which is on October 23rd, and then December the 4th. But in 2026, when the new chairs step in, we will look to incorporate quite a few of those changes. So please, please, please keep your feedback coming as I dive into this module. Before I dive into this module, just a reminder again for those of you that are watching online, very shortly the siberX team will share the code from Immersive Labs for a lab environment where you can practice this simulation as well. It may not match it word for word, but it is a very good environment for you to practice in. And hopefully in 2026, in real time, you'll all be able to log in and provide your perspective, maybe even take on a role right here on stage in real time. I want to thank the Immersive Labs team for setting that up and the siberX team as well for making that happen. Before I dive into this session, I'll just remind everyone that we are at the tail end right now. This session will go on for about 60 minutes-ish, and then we have a 10-minute break before we go to the lessons learned and the closing. That lessons learned and closing typically takes about 30 minutes and is an opportunity for you to ask your questions as well. With that, I also want to thank Kimberly from Splunk for again becoming a supporter and sponsor of Operation Defend the North. Truly appreciate it, and Kimberly will definitely provide a lot of context to some of the questions that we were hearing around attribution, the who-done-it moment. Well, we're going to dive right into this. Most of the advisors that you're seeing on the stage now, you've seen in previous sessions. However, I'm also joined by Arlene, who's going to take over the role of business continuity and resilience. And I think most of, besides Kimberly and Arlene, everyone else you have seen before. Now, it would not be a module without an update from our beloved news reporter, Roshan Khan from ODTN News. So I'm going to have the news update feature just about now onto your screens.
Good evening, I'm Roshan Khan, and this is ODTN News. Days after Alberta's historic power failure, much of the province remains without electricity. The Alberta Electric System Operator and multiple power generation companies say they've been working around the clock to coordinate black start procedures, while also ensuring that lingering threats within their systems have been eradicated. However, officials confirm that bringing the grid back online is proving more complex than expected. Most of Alberta's major power plants require electricity from the grid itself to start and operate, a challenge when the grid is completely offline. Crews are now relying on a handful of black start facilities, which are smaller but self-sustaining generation sites which can be used to slowly build enough power to re-energize the larger stations and reconnect the province's transmission network. AESO says the process is underway but could take time as each system is brought online in sequence to prevent further instability. Federal and provincial authorities continue to monitor the effort, calling it one of the most significant recovery operations in Canada's modern energy history. For millions across Alberta, patience remains the only option as the province works to power itself back from zero. I'm Roshan Khan, this is ODTN News. Thank you for following along as disaster struck.
Thank you, Roshan Khan. And I will begin by letting you all know that the CEO has messaged us as well. It is day 4 now, and the CEO is asking, hey, I'm trying to follow along with everything that's going on. Thank you for the updates. The CEO has also come back in town. One of the concerns that seems to be propping up, and Vivek, maybe I'll start off with you at this point, is the CEO really wants to know is, you remember with SolarWinds, we had the SEC getting involved and there was the CISO getting prosecuted, so on and so forth. What does the CEO have to worry about, or is it only something that Rob, our CISO, will have to deal with?
I think there's going to be a number of areas to investigate. I think overall the CEO does have an accountability to ensure compliance and safety and procedures are followed, and the CEO relies on their executive teams to also uphold those standards and processes. So the question will be, was there a breakdown in process? Was there a non-compliance issue? Was it intentional negligence, or even worse, insider threat? And I think those things will have to, obviously be evaluated. But, how this impacts the team. So far through this incident, the team has been working with full heart and, to restore services. So I'm encouraged that, I don't think anything negative is going to happen there. But at the end of the day, this is a service to the public. And so there's an accountability to citizens and regulators to not only do the right thing, but to build the evidence that you're doing the right thing. And we're already seeing hints that the compliance may not have been to the level that it was attested to, which also can impact insurance coverage. It also can impact budgets and funding and costs and additional charges that may be borne out by investors and customers in the future. So it's hard to predict the total cost of ownership impact because it really is a 5-year hit by the time you evaluate all of this. But I think we need to investigate that and make sure we're transparent and share those results openly.
I think the answer to the CEO is, to channel my favorite cyber lawyer, CYA, consult your attorney. Because really the general counsel is best positioned for the legal, are we meeting our disclosure obligations, our regulatory obligations in reporting it as a company? And you're right, one thing we learned from SolarWinds is CISO liability. And, for that, the CISO being me should also be CYAing and consulting my attorney to be sure that I've got things covered for me should something happen.
Fair enough. I have to let you know, though, I don't think it's just some federal body or regulator that's going to be coming after us. There's a lot of things that have come into us by email, by X, by TikTok, and yeah, I'll bring it up very, very shortly. So stay tuned, everyone. And Arlene, if I can come to you for a moment. By the way, it seems that our board member, after 4 days with this incident, you have become a full-fledged security expert. The responses that you provided were very neat. That's Vivek for you. That's 20 plus years of experience. Arlene, if I can come to you at this point, there is a lot of concern, and I still have the PR team that's trying their best to deal with a lot of the issues. The media still keeps saying that Alberta is still without power as crews conduct black start operations to rebuild the grid. You've been in this from a continuity and a resilience perspective. Do you have any estimate of how long this will take? And can you tell the audience, from a practical perspective, this is not about another 2 or 3 days. This could be weeks.
That's correct. In my past experience, usually when something of this catastrophic nature happens, as Roshan had identified in that news article, we are at ground zero. And so when you're starting at ground zero, it's literally where you start, and that can take a lot of time. And in my experience, playbooks, runbooks can be estimates, but when it comes to critical infrastructure, it can take anywhere from weeks to months. Of course, there's a sequencing of getting things back online based on essential services. However, when it comes to organizations like siberX Co., this can take some time depending on the impact and how much we have to rebuild.
All right. Well, in terms, you've just brought up that important word, and I know that there was, I'd got a text from an individual. Samuel, if you're in the room, Samuel, do you want to raise your question now? I don't know if we have a mic, but Samuel, if you want to bring up your question, hold on. I think we can get you a mic. Des, do we have a mic that we can give Samuel? Yes, we do. Yes, Samuel, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so I have this question. I wanted to raise the question during the eradication process, but I just bring it up now. Thanks for acknowledging me. So during the containment module, the SOC team actually revealed to us that, on the dashboard, that the attack was actually coming from the internal IP, right? And we could show that the destination IP was from internal network. And that kind of, sent the message to me, I might be wrong, that the attacker might have gained access into the internal network. And when we came back during the eradication process,
right,
we realized we got the news that there has been lateral movements. And that has led to, the power outage.
Yes.
I just want to kind of confirm, I don't know, is there some kind of negligence during the process or during the monitoring process within the SOC team, within the entire process? I'm just curious about that. Maybe you can just help me a bit. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. Anyone wants to chime in?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. And Sam and I had a quick chat with his fellow students at the break. We sort of expect that all the cyber whiz bang we have does produce, gems of information, but generally we do still have that that signal to noise problem. So when an incident's happening, it's really important to try to figure out what you're seeing and potentially, delegate somebody to start pulling on that thread while not having the entire team focus on chasing after something that could be totally misleading, a red herring. So in that case, we pulled up some data that could either help our investigation or be actually a distraction. And that we're really trying to represent the challenge that we have, that if your SIM is sucking in 100 gigs a day of logs, the diamonds in the rough are still very small relative to the amount of data that you're ingesting. So that is a very good example. Now, there were some indicators that we in there that was do we have remote access? Do we have beaconing? Those are all things that were part of the storyline to see if we can pull on and see where it goes. But in the real world, unfortunately, you need to tune a SIM and all the other tooling to such an extent to really get to a point where you can really trust and have those answers so readily available. And arguably that's unobtainium, but we can get as close to that 90% good with proper tuning of these tools.
So, standard answer. We kind of know, but we also don't. So it's one of those moments. But Samuel, I appreciate you holding that question. But also, please feel free at any point of time, in the previous module when you wanted to ask, if I missed you, just stand up and ask the question. Sometimes there's a lot going on here on stage. So if I missed anybody's question, just interrupt us and take it away. Not an issue at all. Well, Kimberly, I'm going to bring you into this equation, and then I want to go back to something Arlene said by bringing up an email that has come in. Kimberly, at this point, and I know I've asked you this question at previous sessions as well, there's a very big push, especially online, on the whodunit, right? The attribution piece. I don't want to just go down that question that we've covered in previous Operation Defend the North. I do want to ask you, is that at this point, the collaboration, there's been some complaints that have come in also to the board that the collaboration with AESO, with our federal partners, has been quite weak. From a threat intelligence perspective, what are some very important steps we need to follow right now if we are collaborating with federal bodies, et cetera, in terms of sharing the information that we have? Any tips that you can give us at this point?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important if we're going to go down the road of attribution, which to me comes after the fact. It's very hard to do attribution in the moment when you're trying to bring systems back online and ensuring people have power and electricity and everything else. But in terms of working with federal government entities, other organizations, it's important to be open and honest with what's happening. And if we can share any logging that we have, any information that we have, the more information and the more data they have, the better. And it's so important to work together. I spent many years working in the federal government before coming over to Splunk. And that was one of the roadblocks, was getting organizations to just be honest and tell us what was going on. And it's not to come in as a big brother and you know, kind of make them feel bad. You know, there's that old saying, you know, everybody's going to get breached at some point, something's going to happen. But it's important to work together. We've all been in the same boat. We're all going to be in the same boat at some point, and it's about making the organization better. So once everything is resolved, hopefully it doesn't go on for weeks and months with a power outage, making sure that you have the logs that you can share, that they're time synced, they're correlated, and you are bringing in the threat intelligence that you need. And that's a lot of times what a government organization will bring to the table, is the knowledge of these types of actors and the activities that they've seen in other organizations as well.
Sherry, if I can ask you, I know you were going to chime in since I mentioned threat intelligence as well. Please feel free to chime in, but there was also a question that came to me is, as we're about to go through some of the complaints that are flooding in, the role of deep fakes, the role of misleading misinformation campaigns, how should we be protecting against that at this very critical moment?
Right now, with the socials and the deepfakes, definitely ignore those for now. They're not important. They're noise. What is important is containment. It is continuing generation of getting the power back online, and so that is your priority. We can delve into a lot of these other deep fakes and stuff, but have your communication channels secure. You know, establish those. Prevention is better than any intelligence can give you. Intelligence is just a tool. It's just one part of something that's going to give you information so that you can make those right decisions. Intelligence doesn't contain anything for you. Stopping the IOCs, there's no such thing as stopping the IOCs. But a lot of people, I think, have a misunderstanding of what the role of threat intelligence is, and it's basically to inform you of what decision you should be making. And the information you share with your partner, with government partners and the FBI, and those will assist in attribution, because they have more resources, and crowd pooling those resources, as we do in this industry, is how we get to that attribution.
Okay. I like that there was a question over here. Do you need a mic maybe? The mic will come, and it's just very helpful if we have that mic, because then the online folks can listen in clearly as well. It's right at the front there. Thank you, AV Heroes at Bow Valley College. Yep, you're going to have to wait for our AV team to move all the way to the back, turn it on, give us a thumbs up. You're good to go.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. On information sharing, I'm probably behind here. I'm guessing this would have been a few steps ago or modules ago, but at what point would you have brought in so law enforcement and then also external legal counsel, or if there's a breach coach, at what point would that have happened theoretically? Ideally.
So I'll take that. So your cyber insurance coverage will include in it a table of here's the breach coaches you will use. And so at the time we notified cyber insurance, breach coach sort of comes with that. Ostensibly to help the management team work through the issues. Some might say it's a spy for the insurance company. You can take your pick. But so that would happen there. Information sharing, ideally, from the very beginning. Sharing with EISAC in our case, or whatever your industry ISAC is, sharing with the Cyber Center is what allows them to give you the best information back to support. So again, that would have started very early, maybe towards the end of Module 1, once we got to the point of declaring an incident. That information sharing, if it hadn't started already, should be kicked in there.
Fair enough. So with that, I am going to bring up a little email that has come in. Thank you for that question as well. That email will pop up on your screen very, very shortly. And that email is from FIFA Digital Operations. I will read parts of it. Dear SPC leadership, which is all of us here at the table, We are writing rather, to express our deep frustration and concern following the recent blackout that affected your AI data centers in Alberta. As one of your enterprise clients, FIFA's analytics and media systems were hosted through your AI compute cluster, which went offline. Our teams report the loss of multiple weeks of live match and player performance data, along with significant disruption to ongoing broadcast and tournament simulations. We require an immediate briefing on when full data access will be restored and how SPC intends to prevent such catastrophic interruptions in the future. Our legal and communications departments are reviewing the implications of this outage, including potential breach of service obligations. Please escalate this matter internally and provide an official statement by end of day. Captain CISO, have we not at this point of time communicated at all besides just the message that Shelley put out from PR that we are investigating?
So ideally, the customer teams, the sales teams, the customer-facing folks, would have been given messaging and the task to reach out to key customers, if not all customers. It's a bit disconcerting to me that they seem to have missed a pretty major one in that list. But that would be, when we think about the roles and responsibilities in an incident, the reason why we got that corporate crisis bit is to make sure we have that overlay. It appears, at least for one customer, that got missed, unfortunately.
Okay, fair enough. SOC team, or rather James, I want to come to you first. James, at this point, this implications with FIFA, which is, it has not just provincial implications, it has national implications, it has multiple economic implications attached to it, multiple political sides attached to it. This is a big concern that FIFA is now sending us such an email. And from a security perspective, does this raise any alarms for you in the immediate?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, it's a 1,000-pound gorilla that you're dealing with right here, and it's pretty hard to tangle with a 1,000-pound gorilla. So, I mean, even some more, less so from the cybersecurity lens, more even just from the PR lens and how this will get out. You're looking at they're asking for an official statement by end of day when you're still trying to turn everything on. You don't have everything in place. So to me, looking at that, I would say that you're going to be coming up against their legal pretty quickly if you're not able to respond in the manner they're expecting. I'd be looking back to them and asking for a bit of grace on that time, saying we're still in the middle of this and we're trying to get an appropriate response rather than a rushed response.
I want to go deeper into the technical side of the recovery, but Sherry, from an intelligence perspective, when you read this email, is there anything that stands out to you as well?
Okay, so I do notice that there are some typos in here, AI compute cluster. Definitely not written by ChatGPT. Written by a human person, someone who sometimes puts two spaces after a period. But this is definitely written by a human, so that's all that stands out.
Fair enough.
I think Ollie, one thing I'd call out is there's going to be a lot of companies that are impacted by this, and I wouldn't try to give them a false expectation of attention and priority unless it's truly warranted, because the power outage may have impacted their event in other dimensions. Mm-hmm. If it impacted the data centers, probably the event might have been postponed or canceled just due to safety reasons, or customers not able to get there, or traffic lights not working. Like, there's probably a million reasons why, and their lawyers are just looking at all the contracts and trying to exhaust all the ways to recover their losses. So I think that Rob was pointing out as CISO, there's comms that are going on across customers, and I would shepherd them into those forums and hear them out and kind of treat them that way. Otherwise, they're going to get an expectation that they are special, and it may turn out that they couldn't have run their event in any case. So, be cautious about letting a squeaky wheel drive your agenda.
Fair enough. Go ahead, please, Arlene.
And Vivek, I also want to add to that. In my past experience, when there are a lot of vendors impacted by a disaster of this nature, what typically happens as well is rather than individuals going to vendors, providing them updates on a regular basis, they're invited to a regular forum. And that is where we are addressing some of their concerns, collective concerns, holistically and on a regular basis.
Ali, can I jump in
Absolutely.
quickly as well? I know we've got a lot of opinions. Just speaking to that, and part of the recovery and the bringing back the service, it's also rebuilding trust with your customers and the organizations that you work with. And one of the ways that I've done that in the past is just with data. You can't argue with the data; it is what it is. But having all of that data together, it really tells the narrative of how your organization is recovering, how it responded, and the lessons that it's learning. So you can leverage all that data as you're going through the recovery to take advantage of it and really tell that story to help rebuild the trust and the regular updates, right? There's always going to be new data coming in and a new knowledge of what's happened during the event, and relaying that to your customers as well.
Fair enough. Online, we had a very interesting response to the individual from FIFA, and the response from Nurlan is, the response to FIFA needs to be handled by the CEO. Travel, meet, wine and dine, explain, settle. That should be a part of our playbook. Well done, Nurlan. You get an award for that. But look, it is starting to get very intriguing over here, because I can tell you, although I don't have them all ready to show you, but I've started to get some screenshots also of other news reports that are coming in. One report that just came in also states that this outage is showing how Albertans are at the mercy of too few providers. And Alex, do you want to chime in on that?
Well, I did actually want to circle back on one thing first. Sure. So, FIFA was a huge win for our company. We were up against 3 other AI data center companies, and we won it. Because of our eco-friendly approach, because we have, for most of the year, cold air, so we can actually reduce our cooling plant requirements. But if I recall, they had a pretty stringent vendor risk management program, and I'm really worried about that SLA, particularly with some of those clauses, because I do feel that we did answer things that were more future forward-looking than actual in terms of security controls. Over to you, Rob.
Thanks, Alex. Part of the challenge is, and I think any of us who have been in a position, done vendor management and gotten those questionnaires back from vendors, is sometimes their responses tend to be a bit more aspirational than today. Typically, this FIFA questionnaire, I actually never saw it, because typically those are done by the salespeople who they get the questionnaire, they answer the questions, and out it goes. Anything to win the business, I suppose.
Fair enough, but if they're not there, we don't have jobs, because nothing quite pays the bills that way. So there are a lot of questions here, and the board has started to point out the collaboration into departments and how we're speaking to one another. So there's a lot of blind spots there. Paul, if I can go to you and then very quickly to Keith. Paul, the first sort of question that we're starting to get online as well is, as you're recovering and restoring systems, are you bringing back, and I'll reword this into simple terms, are we bringing back all the inverters at once? Are we going to be looking at a staged recovery process? Can you help us understand what's the best practice at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely looking at a staged approach. We want to make sure that we have steady uptake on the system, and we're not going to impact it. We don't trigger any more remedial actions inside the system. We don't want to try to bring them all on at once, because if we all of a sudden pass malware that we missed or the firmware that is rogue on to other systems, then we'll be here again next week doing this all over again, and we don't want to do that. So definitely staged approach. We want to make sure we get the larger producers stabilized, and then of course our main market participants, which are the Alberta citizens, on board and up and running, so that they can actually continue with their day-to-day lives.
Fair enough. Thank you for that, Keith. I'm getting some emails coming in from the CEO as well. I'll bring that up shortly. But Keith, just for you, internally within siberX PowerCo, we've not made any changes to our internal operations, our our emails are functioning as expected, and everything else is going on as planned. Are there any changes over there that you're expecting, or are things over there going to remain status quo, given that it doesn't seem to have impacted those systems?
Well, I think there's two big things. One, we're definitely all hands on deck with the remediation with the inverters. And so as we're dedicating all of our resources towards that, we're definitely having some challenges with other internal SLAs across the business. The other thing that I think is really important to talk about, especially when it comes to the prioritization of everything else, is that we are really confident around where the attack is coming in from. But when we think about the different vectors or the lateral movement across, I don't think we've done a lot of work in terms of any future mitigation. And so I think that we're probably starting to get a little bit concerned around, where else could someone be hiding and what else do they have control for a potential future attack vector.
Okay, thank you for that. I can tell you that we are getting some information, and we'll go to the SOC team and the NOC team very shortly. We are getting some information that the grid is steadily coming back online. However, the online fury against us is increasing significantly. My screen is going to pop up very shortly up there, and you can see on our beloved platform X, we have examples of a couple of tweets, and there are more, but I've just chosen these two examples. Amanda says, no power, no signal, no updates. It's 2025, and somehow I was charging my phone in my car just to see if I could get online to see rumors on threads. Is this what a digital collapse looks like? That shit was scary. Hashtag Alberta blackout. Nicholas says, and Nicholas's handle is Nick is right, so I guess let's listen to Nick. Nick says, Alberta was totally offline. That gives me hope. No banks, no comms, no clear answers. If this isn't cyber war, what is? Now, James, I know very shortly we're going to declare you mayor of Calgary. For those of you who haven't gone out and vote, get out and vote. Vote James for mayor. James, based on this tweet, how do we respond to things like this? Because these things are trending, where there's fear now going out there that this is a cyber war. We've been hit. It's not just about restoring systems, it's about restoring trust, like I said, in Ottawa. What do you think our next steps need to be here from a comms perspective as well, while we slowly move towards the IT and the technical restorations?
With the communications, I'd say it's you can either, there's a saying that it's either a 1-day cycle or it's a 10-day cycle. With that, what I would say is when you're looking at your communications, have your communications team build out a plan from this point, this inflection, where it's looking like to deal with any contingencies that they may see. Because what you'll see is if you do start responding directly, that you may have people come in with misinformation or misunderstood, being irate. Some of this is actually, has been public safety. So when you're dealing with that, you better have your team play out a few scenarios before we start actually interacting with the public in that aspect. And then moving forward, then as things progress, that you're continually reassessing. You're not going to be able to interact with everything, and I don't think you should be interacting with everything, but if there's some key thematic items that are coming out of the public, trying to address those in an appropriate manner, and at the same time, tempering that with what we're hearing and what we're actually, can release, when we're working with the CCCS as well.
And James, if you don't mind, also what happens at this point as well is you can see from those social media posts that there is no mention particularly about one specific company. And so this is actually an orchestrated communication with government as well as ASO, et cetera. And the communications team internally should be preparing for what is specific and targeted to our organization, but also aligning our messaging with what is expected from ASO and the government.
Fair enough. This is, and I can tell you that there's some more information that is coming my way as well from a comms perspective. Vivek, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to call out, ideally there would have been a comms playbook for this, because one of the most important activities throughout this is the comms plan. And, many companies face crises, operational, cyber, or otherwise, And these are opportunities actually to do the right thing, be transparent, and be truthful, and actually gain more recognition for that. So hypothetically, like throughout this situation, someone could have been tracking all the good things that the company was doing to make sure critical services stayed up, being very clear about what we know and what we don't know, communicating frequently once we were ready to. And then as the situation goes on, these kind of tweets are going to come up because people aren't happy. But as the march and consistency of that communication about, hey, we got water to these communities, we ensured this hospital stayed up, we charged these school buses, and and keep maintaining the list and visibility that there was a concerted effort to do everything that we possibly could to ensure safe passage of all the customers and companies. That message would be, repeated and eventually heard. And it may even come out of this with a better brand. So I think that can't be undervalued and under-resourced as something that, meets the end of this, and tweets like this will eventually fade out, and really recognition that the company was doing the best they could under the circumstances. I think nobody is going to hold a cyber attack or this type of attack against the company unless there's really blatant negligence and disregard. So I think it's actually an opportunity to make sure you're doing the right things throughout it, so that at the end you can actually improve your brand as opposed to worry about it going, down the toilet.
And these questions on communications came up quite a bit. Keith, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's been a lot of focus on the external comms here, but I think that the other really important piece to consider is that the people that are also doing some of the restoration work have families, they have people at home, they're probably getting their phones blown up, they're reading these tweets, and I think that the toll on them as well is going to be pretty significant and grave. I think Rob mentioned it earlier. But, the mental health of these folks that's going to be doing it is at the tipping point. They're tired, they're exhausted, and then they're getting it all from the outside. Really, really important from an executive standpoint that we kind of separate these two things into different streams. The idea of who's dealing with the customers and vendors, who's dealing with the regulators and partners, and really insulating that internal IT operations team or in the SecOps team that are doing some of this work to still, there's still a lot of work in front of them. We need to be shielding them from this narrative specifically and making sure that they can stay really focused on the task at hand.
Fair enough. There's a lot more that's coming up, and I know that the security team has been working with operations, so I'll come to you very shortly. But in keeping with some of the suggestions that we've got from our online viewers, Nurlan again is back at it with another home run and says, well, there's a lot of stuff going on social media. Here's my strategy. siberX PowerCo should follow the following next steps. Deploy social media influencers and have them say, I finally managed to finish reading that book I started a year ago, and turn this into a positive spin. But you know what, Alex, I think you'd agree with me as we were preparing for Operation Defend the North, this is a reality. Marks and Spencer, if I recall correctly, timed the release of their infamous strawberry ice cream sandwich just 2 weeks after the major cyber attack that they had. Do you want to shed some light on that, maybe?
I do like that, and I put in the chat, looking at things from a half full perspective is good, and it really plays on what Vivek was saying, is let's actually try to track our wins. At this point, the public doesn't necessarily know that siberX PowerCo may have been the main contributing factor to the provincial grid going down. So anything that was good for community, we should be trying to promote. Marks and Spencer's is an interesting one because it's a staple in the UK, and if you've got a British mom like I, you know that store because it's their bastion, what was the bastion in Canada for them, connecting back with their culture and homeland. So there was a lot of things that Marks and Spencer's did wrong, but trying to lift the spirits a little bit with the ice cream sandwich was a clever PR trick. I'm assuming they probably hired a PR firm to give them that idea. But they were still bleeding out while they were given melted sandwiches because, months later, they were still requiring people to fill out a paper job application form for the retail season because their HR systems had not been recovered yet. Yep. So, I think that is a little bit of a shell game, but that is what PR is.
Yep, no, I buy that. And if siberX PowerCo decides to give out free butter chicken, I'm in. I'll forget about all of the power outage, so on and so forth. However, back to recovery. Kimberly and Shreya, I'm going to come to you very shortly, and we'll have your screen pop up in a couple of seconds. But Kimberly, a question for you. The regulators have sent us a message saying, listen, by the end of day, we do want to know that you've validated system configurations, removed all malicious code, compromised firmware is gone, and that you can confirm for us that the technical teams have reflashed, recommissioned, and everything has been brought up under consistency and control. From just so that our audience understands, from a Splunk perspective, how would, for example, what kind of logs would there be changes in the types of logs you'll be monitoring after this incident? Are there things that you would recommend we would have to change in terms of how we're documenting all of our events?
It's a very good question.
Once in a while,
yeah, you get some good ones. I wouldn't say changing the types of logs that you're ingesting. I would hope that a power corporation was ingesting many logs from across all their different systems in order to maintain visibility across the organization. I think it's more making sure that you have the logs accessible and available to the people that need them. And it's not just about having logs. They need to be in the right format, they need to be time synchronized, they need to be searchable, and you need to be able to correlate across the different entities in the organization, along with incorporating threat intelligence as well. So really having a place where you can do that. I've worked through many of these types of incidents before, and I think there was a comment just a little bit ago that the IT and the corporate network hasn't been touched. Yep. I would ask, are you sure that it hasn't been touched? How do you know? Can you confirm that? Can you look in the logs? Can you make sure that they're not moving laterally? Threat actors don't come back and ring the front doorbell. They're already going to be there, and they're going to be hiding in plain sight. They're not going to be making some weird kind of unusual thing that's happening. They're going to use the tools that you already have, and the only way you can detect that is to have the logs in the right place and be able to search back through time and have them synchronized. So.
Fair enough, and I'm going to go a step further and tell you that there has been some concern also, like the board rightfully brought up, about the behaviors of our CTO and our CEO, and questionable behaviors, and yes, we've made light of it, but 2 or 3 things are about to happen which will really escalate the tensions around recovery at this point. I'll take a pause on this side of things. I know that if my logs are correct, or if my notices are correct, Shrey, do we have the recovery report that we can review now?
We do. We have received a recovery report from CCCS.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the executive summary, and just instead of reading the entire thing. Grid operators successfully restored normal services following the containment of a confirmed compromise targeting remote managed smart inverters, which was one of the point of discussions we had through and through. Couple of smart inverters were rolled out, as we discussed earlier, the slow rollout process, where we know that they are safe, they're in tune, and emergency services can start utilizing them at the same time. We had a rapid containment response done. We were working hand in hand with CCCS and the OT team. There was a coordinated recovery, which prevented sustained service disruptions or cascading grid failures, which was one of the major point of concerns which the board has raised. Through and through, there were a couple of response actions which were taken place as well. Going through a couple of them, during containment, we had isolated the affected inverters from the management network. There was disablement of the external API access and enforced internal VPN-only management. This has been one of the most crucial aspects throughout the containment scenario. Applied temporary firewall blocks on the known malicious IPs. Yes, we had done this before as well, but turns out it was not rightly implemented. The configuration was not proper, and it was identified as well.
I can pause you for a moment. Captain CISO to the rescue. These response actions that they have documented, I know the SOC's telling us that this is all documented. Were you in agreement and aware of all of these actions?
I was. So this was our plan for containment and remediation, which the teams have been executing. Couple things here that are interesting is that CCCS is publishing it before we are in our own actions, which is interesting. Hopefully we've communicated that out with our own stakeholders before it came out in a CCCS report in terms of pieces. But that neither here nor there. It's important to note this is an interesting inflection point because every incident has 3 incidents. The cybersecurity problem, which is to make the bad man stop, the IT problem, which are the services that are out, and the business continuity and resilience problem, which is how do we get going. Now we're seeing the cybersecurity bit wind down, and it is the continuous monitoring, the validation that yes, we got it all as things come back up. But now the focus really turns to the other 2. The IT/OT incident of fixing what's broken, and the business continuity and disaster recovery piece of getting our key business functions up and running.
Thank you, CISO. SOC team, I'll go back to you if you want to walk us through the eradication and recovery steps.
Absolutely. Within the eradication, we removed the unsigned firmware artifacts, which was the whole point of discussion at the initial basis. We verified the SHAs. We verified that the ones which vendor provided and the ones which were deployed do match. There was a password reset, certificate reissuance of all inverter management accounts. There is still a principle of least privilege implied at this point. Eventually, we will slowly and gradually release things more and more. During recovery, the firmware to be validated version as 3.2.7.
I have to ask another question, and this has come in from comms. You've used this term, principle of least privilege. Alex, can I ask you, and please tell me that this is contained to certain individuals, who is actually making these changes, and have we validated who those individuals are, and are they within our scope and control?
Looking primarily at the logs, Root was making these changes.
Okay.
No comment.
And that probably is something that we need to take back for feedback, that maybe we shouldn't be using a shared account for administrative changes on the environment. And what Shrey is, as part of the remediation, we have shimmed in a couple wish items that we've had on the CISO's desk for a number of months, including getting individual accounts, getting 2FA on the management consoles, and Bastion hosts. So we did shim those in as well so that we are not sharing the root account anymore.
Fair enough. Thank you. I've made a note and shared that over. ICS, anything you want to add to this? Oh, there's a question. My bad. Sorry, Samuel. Again, I did not see you. If you can pass the mic over to Samuel. Can you use the mic again? We cannot hear you properly. Try again.
Who was the implementer on the change management process that was approved for the change?
During the recovery?
No, during the
eradication.
Eradication? The eradication?
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe
the installation of the firmware, you said something about using the shared account, and you can't technically tell who actually did the installation of the firmware. But you can circle back to who was the implementer during the change management process that was approved to carry on the implementation of the firmware installation.
So it has been a bee in our bonnet that we do use shared accounts. All of the technicians and electrical engineers that are operating the inverters and management power management systems don't have individual accounts. Now, part of that problem is that these systems do not talk to our directory service. Active Directory is not a thing in OT for the most part. So that means that we would have individual and unique accounts built into these systems. We also have to recognize, even though this is a smart inverter NG2000, it doesn't have the ability to have a large set of users. And it's just, unfortunately, industrial control systems are never designed to reflect our security controls and capabilities, invented in the last 20 years. So we're going to run into some of those technical deficiencies in there. Now, regarding the change window and authorization, part of our incident response plan does give authorized individuals that are accredited to work on these systems a wide range to get the systems back to a nominal state. Ideally, after we have recovered, we would then be going back to do a configuration audit to make sure things are the way they are supposed to be configured. And to talk a little bit more, we probably also continue to do threat monitoring and threat hunting in the environment. As Kimberly alluded to, we got to make sure that they are out and they haven't actually moved from OT to the IT environment.
All right, fair enough. And I can tell you that within our internal chat, there's a lot of debate as to how CCCS has even issued this report. And there's a debate of whether CCCS could actually have published this. Vivek, you have one position, and then Sherry, you have another. Why should the audience be devoid of the fun in our chat group? So, Vivek, why don't you throw the first punch?
No, the CCCS team is fantastic. They work with a number of groups, the different ISACs and CCTX. They would respect the protocols, traffic light protocols, unless the victim declared, TLP appropriate, white, amber, red. They wouldn't disclose this level of information, and I don't think this organization would have authorized this level of information to go publicly. CCS is very mature in their processes. I think they would have grabbed the 2 IP addresses and asked if just those 2 things could be TLP white or amber and shared them appropriately. So I don't think they're in the habit of directing specific actions. They might suggest things and suggest consultations with the vendors, etc., but they wouldn't go this specific, I'm quite certain. But I think the point here is really sharing is important. And often companies are battling their legal teams to make sure they can share enough and share it quickly. And so mechanisms like CCCS and CCTX allow for that framework of sharing with the right level of anonymization.
I'll jump in very quickly. Having worked at the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity for quite a while, they wouldn't do this. They absolutely respect the organization that they're working with, and nothing would be released without the organization's permission at the appropriate TLP level.
Sherry, it's 2 against 1.
So I'm gonna argue with the information that I have available to me. Yep. The very first flash notice that they sent out was without their knowledge of this company's breach, and so there has to be other entities involved. And so there are other power companies that are experiencing the same thing. So this isn't our incident, is the way I'm reading it, but it should still not be TLP green. It should be TLP amber strict, sent out to the energy, the only the parties that need to know would have this information.
Well, we could throw a twist into all of this, is it really CCCS communicating with us? And that creates another area of investigation. But I do have, we'll move on from this. We have about 12 to 13 minutes left, and then we come to our conclusion and closing. I'll ask this question, Paul, to you, and then we'll go quickly summarize the remainder of that report, and then there's a little bit of a twist with the CEO, which I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to bring this up, but hopefully I will try. Rob, question for you. This came from the chat directly to me. Sorry, not Rob, Paul. Question for you. It seems like we're saying IT operations and OT operations they don't even talk to one another. Is that the case? That, for example, in municipalities, for example, IT and OT would not even be the same teams. They do not share the same resources. Are they separated to that degree? And that's why we see a little bit of broken communication?
Correct. So there's been a lot of talk about IT, OT integration and collaboration. It has changed in the last decade, I would say, that there's been a lot more communication going on between the two. Usually you'll find someone in the OT environment will be pulled over into the IT team to kind of really do that mentorship and education, because it's not as easy as just rebooting a systems. As you can see, we can't just fire up these big turbines to get power going again, because bad things can happen. So yeah, there has been a definitely a mood change, but they're often segmented and kind of operating in their own silos. There are usually point of contacts for every organization and every farm and different industries that allow that OT specialist to talk back to the IT team to make sure that there's nothing done without their oversight. However, we're still going through that evolution, and now the way the environment is moving, where we're going directly, technology to cloud, it's almost skipping over that layer altogether, and it's getting a little kind of convoluted. But traditionally, OT teams are getting more involved with the IT decision making.
Thank you very much. Alex, I believe you have an update for us.
Yeah, just a technical update of where we are at.
Do you want to have your team members screen up as well right now, or? Are we good there?
No, we can just, I'm just reading off of the internal chat.
Sounds good.
So, as we're aware, the grid is starting to recover, and what we would see there is power plants coming online, and then regionally we would start seeing towns popping up. Sometimes it's more rural first because they're low consumers, and then bigger cities. I'm happy to say that my alpaca farm is powered back up again, so I'm really stoked on that. So, looking at this, we have our inverters back online, and ISO just reached out requesting a scheduled resync of our systems. We've confirmed that our power management system of the AI data centers is back up and on a known good state, right firmware, et cetera. So it is looking good, and we are recovering with the province.
Fantastic. That is great to hear. Shrey, just very quickly, is there anything you wanted to add? I know that I chimed in very quickly on the report. Is there anything you want to add from that report, or are we good?
We should be good. There is stability, not issues. There are no concerns or anything like that. So that's pretty much it.
There is stability, but the sanity of our CEO is now being brought into question because I'm about to share an email that the CEO has sent, and honestly, I do not understand. Yes, I recognize the authority that the CEO holds, but this does not seem like it is something that should fall within their jurisdiction, and if it does, we have other problems. So I'm going to read this out to you verbatim. Team, okay. Finally, it addresses us as team. I'm done watching the recovery crawl, okay. We've been stabilizing for 48 hours and still don't have a clear timeline for when our AI data centers, the backbone of our revenue, will be back online. Okay? Let me be perfectly clear. Wow. AI first. Every other system follows. I don't want to hear another update about rural substations or community feeders until compute capacity is restored and client SLAs are back within compliance. FIFA and the rest are already threatening legal action, and we will not lose another contract because of indecision. Coordinate directly with AESO or ISO and reroute whatever load you need. If someone pushes back, escalate it or replace them. Okay? Be gone with their head, clearly. Okay? I expect a concrete restoration schedule within the hour. Also, keep the external messaging neutral. Use phrases like critical systems prioritize. No client names, no excuses. Vivek, at this point, I know you want to put the CEO on a donkey and ride them into the sunset, but this is, and I can validate that this is an actual email that we have received, and it's gone to Alex and crew, it's gone to the OT team, it's gone to the IT team, it's gone to the CISO, who is now on LinkedIn applying for other jobs, because this definitely seems off base. Vivek?
Well, I hope everyone's heard of corporatememo.com. Employees post internal memos on public internet sites. So first of all, the CEO is very clueless to have documented this position. They probably would have, if they even thought this, they probably would have picked up a phone and told this verbally. But anyways, the evidence is clear. I think an organization like siberX Power Co. will already have a list of order of what they would restore and when, and that would have been vetted with legal, and it would have been vetted with the regulators as part of their annual reviews. So for them, for the CEO to interject this is, is a real blatant change from company policies and procedures, and with no justification. So that it's a serious violation of corporate governance. Now, obviously, people would be nervous about the job. They're tired. They've been in this incident, and some people might try to follow this. But hopefully, there would be a bit of reckoning. I think that, my point earlier, if FIFA and others are affected, not helping the communities still doesn't help them either, because the people have to get there. People have to buy their groceries, pick up their kids, drive to the events, work at the data center, and if all of the infrastructure is gone, it's not going to really help. But I think the middle ground really is to bring some of these important clients together and say, look, we have a problem, and we need your help to help us prioritize. We know your contracts say X, but recognizing, our communities, are your backbone as well, and your customers as well. Can we work together to find a middle ground that gets everything up? And I think building that kind of collaboration probably takes a little bit of legal pressure off, because now they're involved and they're understanding how things are being prioritized. So I think that would be an urgent matter. But the CEO is in trouble, because it was one thing just to be away. It was another thing not to know who the delegate CTO was, and now to be strong-arming the team to not follow documented procedures would be another level of peril for that CEO.
Fair enough. Well said. Arlene, can I ask you, as the lead on business resiliency and continuity, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't agree with this approach, and it's happened, and this is known to have happened. How would you deal with this situation at this time?
I agree with Vivek. This is against protocol and what we've tested and received approval for. So the first, this is, if this was sent to certain people, it would of course require some internal communication and understanding of what needs to be communicated to the CEO, and legal would also be involved, because there's legal ramifications with what the CEO is proposing. As a business continuity lead, this is above my pay grade, but I'm expecting the chiefs to make the right decision, because at the end of the day, we have compliance requirements and we have people and safety first.
Fair enough. Is there a question? Yes, go ahead, my friend. Fair enough. We got a mic. Can you repeat that question? I really want the audience online to hear it. Sorry about that.
Yes, I was asking, so could it be that a lawsuit from the AI company that owns the data center be much higher than what you will pay for not following regulations?
So it could be, absolutely. But that is why sometime prior to now, some people got together and wrote a business continuity and recovery plan and did the math when things are cooler and said, based on our values, based on contract needs, based on business needs, if everything goes to heck in a handbasket, here's how we're going to rebuild in what order. And that would have been signed off by the board and by the CEO and AESO and whoever else has to approve it. Now that we're at the phase of the incident where somebody like Arlene is charged with following that plan and getting it executed, this case the CEO has decided to call an audible and do that. And that would be then, if Arlene had received that message coming to me as the CISO or the chief counsel and something, and go, what the heck? Is CEO off their meds, or what do we have to do? But that would then become on us with me and the chief counsel and ultimately potentially the chair of the board to sit and go, actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to follow our plan. And then I've got to rely for keeping my job on the chief counsel and the chair of the board to deal with the CEO problem.
I'm going to jump in here. First of all, the FIFA contract came in, tripled our revenue. And probably some thoughts and processes have not been documented yet. But Rob, I got to remind you that your shares and my shares vest in a couple months. And if we lose FIFA, those shares are worthless. Over to you, Rob.
So this is an interesting one as we go through. Ultimately, the risk for this resides with the shareholders as represented by the board. And so an audible like this, flip the other way, if we lose our license to operate, we're not generating power for our data centers and our FIFA contract's gone too, either way. And so this is one where The chief counsel has to evaluate the legal risk. I am not qualified. I'm not a lawyer. I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, like you. So I can't make that assessment. And so to me, if our general counsel assesses, hey, this, would never approve it, would say something like, I'm not objecting to this, then great. That's an audible the CEO can call. It's been signed off by him, hopefully run by the board. If the chief counsel says, no, this is a big risk, it's way offside, this is a company costing risk, in which case the board needs to sign off on it. The chief counsel would hopefully do the right thing, bring that to the board for a decision. And ultimately, if the board chooses, hey, we're going to accept the risk and we're going to do data centers first it is. Damn the torpedoes, right? But that has to be a decision accepted by shareholders through the board.
All right, we have about 5 minutes left and one more important news item, but Vivek, you can chime in.
Yeah, just I appreciate you trying to escalate this to the board. I think, though, the board's not going to be meeting frequently enough to do that kind of, support. The CEO making this kind of call, it would still need to work its way through change management and other approvals, and it most likely would be stopped and failed. But of all the whole simulation that we're doing here, this one moment is probably the most important lesson for any cybersecurity professional, because if you're not willing to stand up for what is right, you should be fired. And this is where you may be reporting to various executives of the organization because of luck or chance, but you have to decide what's right or wrong, and you have to escalate that. So I know there's shares involved, I know there's money involved, but the CISO role is special. It's a conscience of the organization, and especially in a power company or a hospital company or a banking company, a food or medicine company, you are actually, delivering a service that is vital to people. And so that becomes a first and foremost thought. And so anytime, when you think this is going to be the hardest decision, you have to really think carefully about what your accountability is. And yes, there's accountability to shareholders, but I think first and foremost, you're delivering a service that people are counting on, and you got to really think about the safety of employees and your customers first and foremost, and actually take a position, which may result in you being fired, but the reverse consequence is even worse. So you can think about, you mentioned the Uber case earlier. Yep. There was potentially some executive direction that was followed, and look what happened. So you can Google that case. But I think this is a real important thing for you to take away from the simulation is you have to stand up and you have to be prepared to be fired, or you should be fired.
Yeah, I agree. Vivek, if you start a religion, I'm joining, man. This was well put. First month free, though, okay? I'm not paying any dues. I have to trial this first. James, very quickly, are you prepared to do the right thing? It seems like your SOC leads and your CISO have shares. That sounds like a conflict of interest. So are we calling them out on this? James, do it. We're voting for you.
Yeah, I think you have to do the right thing here. You have to call them out. It's simply put.
And you know what? That's a perfect segue into the final news article, which will pop up onto your screens just about now. And if I'm not mistaken, this is also visible on ODTN.news, or will be visible post-session. Employees have been speaking to ODTN News, and I won't read it verbatim, but they say, employee speaks out, we were told to power the profits, not the people. The CEO's message was loud and clear, get the AI back online, everything else can wait. Layla Park is the reporter. There's a lot of things that have been said there, but I'll read the first paragraph. It says, the leak follows an internal email from CEO LC reportedly instructing teams to prioritize compute capacity, avoiding discussing client names in public. This email, which surfaced on social media late Monday, has drawn heavy criticism from officials and citizens alike. With that, we have about 40 seconds left to wrap up this module, but I wasn't joking when I said, recovery is not just rebooting, it's a resurrection. And that's what has happened, and that's the experience that you've just had. We could have gone deeper into the technicals, absolutely. We could have gone deeper into that report as well, but again, time was of a limit to us. I do want to thank you, as always, Splunk, for supporting, and as always, my wonderful advisors for being a part of this. We'll take a short break for 15 minutes exactly, and then come to the concluding module, which will be about 30 minutes, where we look at some lessons learned and take a few more questions. Thank you, and see you in 15 minutes.